Have you ever felt lost? Not just uncertain, but truly disconnected from yourself, like you woke up one morning and realized the life you're living isn't the one your soul signed up for. You scroll through your phone, watching other people seem to move forward, finding love, success, peace, while you're still trying to figure out where the light switch is in your own mind. And somewhere inside, there's a quiet voice whispering, "What happened to me? When did I lose the spark? Why do I feel like I'm standing still, even when everything around me keeps moving?" But what if I told you something simple? Something that could shift everything, that you're not lost, you're just being redirected. Because there comes a moment in every person's life where the noise gets too loud, the masks fall apart, and the truth begins to whisper, "This isn't who you are." And that moment when the weight of pretending becomes heavier than the fear of beginning again, that's not the end. That's the invitation. That's the moment everything clicks. And if you're hearing this, if these words found you, maybe it's because it's your time to remember, to stop running from yourself and start listening, because you were never meant to chase your way to peace. You were meant to awaken it from within. The invisible disconnection. There's a reason you feel lost. It's not because you're broken, it's because you've been asleep inside someone else's story. From the moment we're born, the world begins to whisper who we're supposed to be. Be nice. Be strong. Don't cry. Work hard. Follow the rules. Fit in. And so, little by little, we trade authenticity for approval. We learn to perform instead of express. We learn to survive instead of feel. And somewhere between those quiet compromises, we forget. We forget the sound of our own soul. It starts so subtly that you barely notice it. One day you wake up and your reflection doesn't feel like you anymore. You smile for photos, laugh at conversations, chase the next goal, but something inside remains untouched. A silence that no achievement seems to fill. That silence is your real self knocking from the inside. You see, we were all conditioned to believe that happiness lives outside of us, in success, in relationships, in validation. But when you build your identity on things that can change, you're building a home on shifting sand. The job changes. The relationship ends. The attention fades, and suddenly the walls collapse, and you're left wondering who you are without them. That moment of collapse feels like loss, but spiritually it's an invitation, because you can't find yourself until everything false falls away. Modern psychology calls it identity dissonance, the conflict between who you are and who you think you should be. Your nervous system experiences it as anxiety, fatigue, or emptiness. But on a deeper level, it's your soul signaling, "I'm ready to return home." That's why every crisis, heartbreak, failure, betrayal, feels like it shatters your world. Because it's meant to. The universe isn't punishing you, it's editing your story. You can't manifest a new chapter while clinging to the pages where you stopped being yourself. And here's where most people get stuck. They try to manifest from the same identity that created the pain. They say, "I want abundance," but their self-concept whispers, "I'm not worthy." They affirm, "I am love," while their subconscious still echoes, "Love abandons me." And so, no matter how many times they visualize or repeat mantras, the results don't stick. Because the unconscious self-image always wins. You don't manifest what you want, you manifest what you believe you are. If deep inside you still see yourself as undeserving, life will keep handing you mirrors that prove you right. The outer world simply reflects the vibration of your inner definition. Think about it. Every decision you make, every relationship you choose, every risk you avoid is a vote for the identity you've accepted. And the most powerful prison isn't built from walls. It's built from beliefs. Somewhere in your mind, there's a sentence that's been running for years. "I'm not enough. I always mess things up. People always leave." Those phrases don't just live in your head, They live in your frequency. They instruct the universe on how to treat you. That's what I mean when I say self-concept equals unconscious manifestation. Your thoughts are electrical. Your emotions are magnetic. Together they broadcast the signal that attracts experiences matching their tone. When your inner language says, "I'm unworthy," you unknowingly tune your life to the station of struggle. When you start to believe, "I am safe," your energy recalibrates to peace, and peace attracts opportunities that can only survive in harmony. It's not philosophy, it's physics. Every emotion carries a measurable frequency. Shame and guilt vibrate at the lowest levels. Love, gratitude, compassion, the highest. When you dwell in guilt, your perception narrows, possibilities disappear. When you shift into gratitude, your brain literally opens new neural pathways. You start to notice doors that were always there. That's why awareness is the beginning of all manifestation. You can't change what you can't see. So the question isn't, what do I want? The question is, who do I think I am? Because if your self-concept is built on old pain, your manifestations will always circle back to recreate that pain. Life will repeat the lesson until you learn the identity behind it. When you were a child, you might have learned that love must be earned, that safety comes only from control, that worth depends on perfection. Those programs didn't disappear. They became the invisible architects of your adult reality. You call it bad luck, you call it self-sabotage. But really, it's your subconscious trying to stay consistent with the story it knows. The mind doesn't care about happiness, it cares about familiarity. It will recreate pain if that pain feels like home. And here's the miracle hidden in the discomfort. The moment you become conscious of your pattern, you're no longer fully inside it. That sliver of awareness is the first crack of light entering the prison. So when you feel lost, when life strips away the titles, the roles, the illusions, it's not trying to punish you. It's showing you the gap between who you've been pretending to be and who you truly are. That gap is sacred. It's the space where transformation begins. You were never meant to chase your worth. You were meant to remember it. You were born worthy. But somewhere along the way, you believed a thought that wasn't yours, and then you spent years building a life to defend that lie. That's why no external achievement ever feels enough, because it's being filtered through a self that still feels empty. You can't pour from a cup you've never filled. So, before you try to manifest a new reality, pause, breathe. Ask yourself, what version of me has been manifesting until now? If it's the version rooted in fear, that's okay. You can thank it. It got you this far. But now it's time to release it with compassion and rebuild from truth. Because manifestation isn't about creating something outside of you. It's about aligning what's inside of you so deeply that the outside has no choice but to mirror it. When your self-concept shifts from lack to love, from fear to faith, you stop trying to attract things and start to allow them. And that's when the world changes, not because the world suddenly became kinder, but because you did. So if you feel lost right now, remember, you're not off your path. You're being guided back to the beginning, to the place where your true self has been waiting all along. The science of alignment. Now that you've seen how your self-concept silently creates your life, let's go deeper. Because knowing that you've been unconsciously manifesting isn't enough. You have to reprogram the mechanism. See, your mind is not your enemy. It's simply an instrument that has learned to play one song. And that song is called your past. Every thought you repeat, every emotion you rehearse, is a note that teaches your body what to expect next. That's why people who say, "Nothing ever changes for me," are unknowingly commanding their nervous system to recreate the same chemistry, the same reactions, the same outcomes, day after day. The brain doesn't distinguish between imagination and reality. It only knows repetition. Whatever you consistently feel, it will normalize. Whatever you expect, it will prepare for. So if you constantly dwell in fear, your body learns fear as familiar. If you constantly imagine failure, your cells prepare for disappointment. And even when opportunity finally appears, you'll unconsciously reject it because your body doesn't recognize safety without struggle. That's why transformation doesn't begin with doing more. It begins with feeling differently. You've probably heard people say, think positive. But thinking positive doesn't work if your nervous system is still wired for survival. You can't outthink an emotion you refuse to feel. You have to walk through it, not around it. Every emotion carries information. Fear says, protect. Anger says, something's unfair. Sadness says, you've lost something meaningful. But once the message is heard, the emotion has served its purpose. It doesn't need to live in your body anymore. Most people get stuck because they identify with their emotions instead of witnessing them. They say, I am angry, instead of, I am feeling anger. They fuse their identity to the vibration and then wonder why it keeps coming back. You are not your thoughts. You are not your emotions. You are the awareness that observes both. And when awareness grows stronger than the habit begins to dissolve. That's where transformation starts, in the moment you stop running from your own inner weather. Neuroscience now shows that every thought sends a chemical signal through the body. If you think a fearful thought, you release cortisol and adrenaline. If you think a loving thought, you release oxytocin and dopamine. Those chemicals aren't abstract. They shape your immune system, your mood, your decisions. In other words, your biology follows your psychology. Your body becomes the memory of your mind. So if you spend years living in stress, you're not just mentally conditioned, you're chemically addicted to the feeling of struggle. The body becomes used to surviving off anxiety. And when peace finally arrives, it feels foreign. That's why so many people sabotage calm. Their body doesn't trust it yet. Transformation means teaching the body to feel what the mind has decided to believe. That's the real alignment. When your thoughts say, I am free, and your body feels safe enough to agree, your frequency changes, and life, being a mirror, begins to match that signal. This is what spiritual teachers meant by faith. Faith is not blind hope. It's embodied coherence between belief and biology. So how do you actually do this? How do you rewire the pattern? You begin where you are, with awareness, breath, and intention. The first step is observation without judgment. You cannot change what you still condemn. When a negative thought arises, don't resist it, just name it. There's fear. There's doubt. There's the old program. That simple act of naming moves it from the unconscious to the conscious. And the moment you make the unconscious conscious, you take back your power. The second step is emotional recalibration. Instead of trying to escape your emotions, sit with them. Breathe into the discomfort until the body realizes it's safe to release. Remember, what you feel, you heal. The third step is embodied visualization. Most people visualize from lack, from the version of themselves that still doubts it's possible. But real manifestation happens when you become the frequency of what you desire. Close your eyes. See the version of you that already lives the reality you want. Notice how they breathe, how they walk, how they speak. Don't just see it, feel it. Let that emotion rise until your body believes it's true. Because the subconscious doesn't speak English, it speaks emotion. And emotion is energy in motion. That's why gratitude is the most magnetic frequency. When you feel grateful before the thing arrives, you're signaling to the universe that it already has. You collapse the distance between you and it, because in that state, there's no separation. But transformation isn't a one-time event. It's a daily practice of alignment. Every time you return to old habits, you're being invited to practice compassion, not punishment. Healing isn't linear. It's a spiral, each loop bringing you closer to center. Sometimes it looks like you're moving backward, but you're actually revisiting the lesson from a higher level of consciousness. That's why patience is sacred, because the universe doesn't rush evolution. Imagine your new reality as a seed. You don't dig it up every morning to see if it's growing. You water it with faith. You nurture it with consistent emotion. And one day, almost without noticing, you become the person you once prayed to be. But there's a deeper layer most people miss: your environment. You cannot heal in the same environment that taught you to shrink. Your surroundings speak to your subconscious constantly. If your home, your music, your friends all remind you of who you used to be, it becomes harder to believe in who you're becoming. So start curating your world to reflect the vibration you wish to live in. Play frequencies that calm your nervous system. Speak words that uplift. Spend time with people who reflect your light, not your wounds, because energy is contagious, and your environment is either expanding your future or echoing your past. Every single day, you're practicing a state of being. You're either rehearsing the old self or rehearsing the new one. And that's the beauty of this human experience. You are both the sculptor and the stone. The work isn't to fight the darkness, it's to turn on the light. When you wake up and meditate, you're telling your nervous system, this moment is safe. When you speak words of affirmation, you're telling your subconscious, I can be trusted with peace. When you choose gratitude instead of complaint, you're shifting your body from stress chemistry to creation chemistry. And then life begins to mirror that calm power back to you. This is not wishful thinking, it's neuroplasticity in motion. Your neurons wire and fire together based on what you repeatedly feel. So every time you choose calm over chaos, you're literally rewiring your brain for abundance. Every time you choose forgiveness over resentment, you're freeing your body from old energy contracts. Every time you choose faith over fear, you're teaching the universe your new frequency. Think of yourself as a radio. The frequency you emit determines the station you receive. You cannot listen to a love song while tuned to the vibration of pain. So rather than trying to attract something external, become the internal match for it. When thought, emotion, and body are in harmony, the gap between intention and reality collapses. That's why some people manifest effortlessly, because their energy is consistent. They think, feel, and act as one, while others struggle because they think abundance, feel doubt, and act from fear. The universe responds to coherence, not contradiction, and coherence is born in stillness. So, if you're ready to change your life, start by changing the way you exist in the present. Don't wait for the future to give you permission to feel peace. Bring peace into this moment, and the future will have no choice but to meet you there. The body will resist at first. It's used to chaos. But stay gentle. Every breath, every pause, every moment of awareness is a new signal to your cells. This is who we are now. When you repeat that long enough, your biology begins to obey your intention. Your mind, your heart, your body, they synchronize. And that alignment is manifestation. It's not forcing, it's remembering, it's not chasing, it's allowing. Because when you become whole within yourself, you stop attracting situations that mirror your wounds. You start attracting experiences that mirror your wholeness. And one day, you wake up and realize that the life you were dreaming of was simply waiting for you to become the person who could hold it. That's the moment everything clicks. Not when something outside of you changes, but when you realize you always had the power to change from within. Walking between worlds. There's a sacred space that appears when you begin to change. A space between who you were and who you are becoming. It's quiet there, unfamiliar, uncomfortable. You start to notice how your old habits don't fit anymore, how certain conversations drain you, how the things that used to excite you now feel hollow. And yet, the new version of you is still taking shape, fragile, raw, like new skin that hasn't touched the world yet. This is what it means to walk between worlds. You're no longer your past, but you're not fully your future either. You're standing in the doorway of transformation, and that doorway always feels narrow because only truth can pass through. Every time you take a step forward, the past will try to call you back, not because it's evil, but because it's familiar. The old self will whisper, "Come back to what you know." The new self will whisper, "Keep walking, I'm waiting for you." And this is where most people turn around. They mistake the discomfort of growth for a sign that they're going the wrong way. But you are learning to recognize the language of evolution. It doesn't speak in ease, it speaks in expansion. When you begin to live consciously, you realize that your environment, your habits, and even your thoughts were all built for the person you used to be. So when you start vibrating higher, life will naturally reorganize itself. Some people will fade. Some opportunities will fall away. And it won't always make sense until you understand that the universe is making space for the new frequency you've chosen. You cannot hold the blessings of your next chapter with the hands that still cling to the last one. Becoming a conscious manifester is not about controlling outcomes, it's about becoming a living expression of alignment. You start acting, speaking, choosing, not from fear, not from validation, but from resonance. You no longer ask, "What do I need to do to get what I want?" You ask, "What kind of person naturally lives that reality?" And then you become that person, one choice at a time. When you shift your question, your energy shifts with it. Because manifestation is not an event, it's a state of being. There's a moment that happens quietly, maybe when you're making your morning coffee or walking under a sunset, when you suddenly realize you're not reacting the same way anymore. You're calmer, more deliberate, more peaceful in places that used to trigger chaos. That's the proof. That's the evidence that your new identity is no longer a concept. It's a frequency. And soon, that frequency will start attracting the people, the ideas, and the opportunities that match it. But to sustain it, you must learn to live in two dimensions at once, the visible and the energetic. In the visible, you still go to work, pay bills, face challenges. In the energetic, you hold the vibration of the version of you who's already on the other side. Every time the visible world contradicts your desire, you don't fall into doubt. You realign. You remind yourself, "I'm not creating from what I see. I'm creating from what I know." Think of yourself as a bridge between potential and reality. Your thoughts are the architects, your emotions the builders, and your actions the foundation. Every aligned action, no matter how small, anchors the invisible into the physical. You meditate, that's action. You forgive, that's action. You say no to what drains you, that's action. Every act of integrity is a signal to the universe. I am ready to receive. That's how you sustain vibration, not by forcing positivity, but by living congruently. If your intention is peace, then your lifestyle must stop worshipping chaos. If your desire is freedom, then your habits must stop serving fear. You can't build heaven on the foundation of hesitation, but let's be honest. Walking between worlds is lonely sometimes. You'll look around and see people still living in the patterns you left behind, and you'll be tempted to dim your light just to fit back in. Don't. Because your growth will challenge the comfort of others. Not everyone will understand your stillness. Not everyone will celebrate your peace. But remember, you didn't come here to be understood. You came here to be transformed. And the ones who are meant to walk beside your new self will meet you in the light of that transformation. Be patient with the in-between. The caterpillar doesn't rush the cocoon. It dissolves in darkness so that its wings can form in silence. You too are dissolving the density of who you were so that you can remember who you've always been. This is the work no one sees, the inner alchemy. The invisible masterpiece. That's why so many give up, because they mistake silence for stagnation. But silence is where the soul rewrites itself. Every morning you wake up and choose alignment again. You are reinforcing your new timeline. Every time you choose peace over reaction, you're expanding that timeline. And eventually, the old one fades. You look back, and the pain that once defined you now feels like someone else's story. Because it is. You've outgrown it. So how do you walk between these worlds? With grace, with presence, with consistency. The same way dawn turns into day, gradually, faithfully, without ever forcing the sun to rise. Keep your mind in gratitude. Keep your body in peace. Keep your heart open. And soon, what feels like two worlds will merge into one. That's when you realize the new reality you've been waiting for was never somewhere else. It was always unfolding within you. You don't become a conscious manifester. You remember that you already are, because creation has never been outside of you. It's been waiting patiently inside for the moment you'd finally believe it. The return to oneness. At some point in your journey, you realize that all along you weren't learning how to manifest things. You were learning how to remember yourself. Everything you chased, everything you thought you wanted, was leading you back to this. The awareness that you were never separate. That's the final truth. The highest frequency. The one most people spend a lifetime searching for. Conscious manifestation is not about attracting more. It's about becoming whole enough to stop needing more. It's not about bending reality to your will. It's about aligning your will with the rhythm of creation itself. When you surrender to that rhythm, life no longer feels like a battlefield. It feels like a conversation between you and the intelligence that breathes the stars. For so long, you believed you were alone. You thought you had to figure everything out, that the universe was distant, indifferent, and that you had to earn its favor through hard work or pain. But look around. Every sunrise, every heartbeat, every coincidence too precise to explain. They're all the universe reminding you, I've never been separate from you. You are the consciousness experiencing itself as human for a while. The drop that forgot it belonged to the ocean. The note that thought it was, apart from the song. And the moment you remember that, fear loses its power, because how can you be afraid of what you already are? Faith, then, is not believing in something outside of you. It's remembering the deeper intelligence within you. Faith is the calm that whispers, even this has purpose. It's the trust that every detour was direction, that even the moments that broke you were carving out space for more light to enter. When you begin to live this way, in surrender instead of control, in flow instead of force, you discover that miracles were never random. They were always resonance. The things you called coincidences were simply alignments you were finally able to perceive. Every manifestation begins in the unseen, and the unseen is not far away. It's the field of consciousness surrounding you right now, responding to every frequency you emit. When your heart is open and your mind is quiet, you don't have to chase synchronicities. They find you, they follow you, because you've become the vibration of harmony itself. That's what the ancients called grace. Grace is alignment without effort. It's creation without resistance. It's when the universe says, now you're ready, let it unfold. In this state, manifestation becomes sacred. You no longer desire things to prove your worth, but to express your truth. You no longer set goals out of fear of missing out, but out of joy for what could be shared through you. You become less interested in having and more devoted to being. Because the ultimate manifestation is peace. Peace in knowing that everything is temporary and yet nothing is lost. Peace in understanding that the same energy that moves galaxies is the same energy that moves through your veins. You begin to live differently. You speak slower. You listen deeper. You act with intention, not reaction. The noise of the world still exists, but it no longer enters you. You start to notice beauty where others see nothing, in the silence between words, in the stillness between breaths. You realize that life itself was always the meditation you were trying to perfect. In this awareness, action becomes prayer, every gesture sacred, every conversation, energy exchange, every challenge, an initiation into more light. You no longer measure your worth by what you achieve. You measure it by how deeply you can remain present in the face of everything. And that presence, that's creation's purest state. When you live in presence, the future unfolds naturally because you're no longer forcing the river. You've become the river. Do you remember the moment you felt lost? How it seemed like everything was falling apart. Now you can see nothing was falling apart. It was all falling into place. Every disappointment was divine redirection. Every heartbreak was an opening disguised as pain. Every failure was your soul asking for a deeper alignment. You were never behind. You were being refined. And now, standing here, you can finally understand. Your life has always been speaking to you, not against you. When you act from that knowing, everything becomes a manifestation of grace. You smile at strangers and they smile back, not because of chance, but because you've become a channel of love. You walk into opportunities and they open, not because you're lucky, but because your energy is no longer resisting abundance. You forgive people who never apologized, and peace enters your home like sunlight through the window. You wake up, breathe, and realize this very moment, is the miracle you were waiting for. That's the paradox of conscious manifestation. The more you let go, the more you receive. The more you surrender, the more you align. Because control is a symptom of fear, but surrender is the language of faith. Faith isn't passive, it's powerful. It's saying to the universe, I trust your timing more than my impatience. It's walking in uncertainty and still choosing gratitude. It's believing that even when you can't see the path can still see you. You were never meant to master manifestation. You were meant to master remembering. Remembering that you are consciousness itself, momentarily playing human. And once you remember, life stops feeling like something to win and starts feeling like something to witness. The purpose of manifestation was never to get more things. It was to awaken the part of you that finally knows it already has everything. And maybe, just maybe, that's the moment everything truly clicks. You are not lost. You are life itself, finding new ways to recognize its own reflection. The invitation to remember. If you're still here, listening, it means something in you recognized the truth. Not because I said it, but because you already knew it. You didn't find this video by accident. You were guided here by the same intelligence that guides the tides, that moves the stars, that whispers to you in moments of stillness. You are not lost. You are awakening. And awakening is not a lightning strike. It's a slow, beautiful unfolding, a remembering of what you've always been. If these words resonated, it's because they were yours all along. They were waiting for you to remember. So take a moment, breathe, and let this truth settle in your heart. You are powerful, you are capable. You are the consciousness that shapes reality, not by force, but by awareness. You don't have to chase peace anymore. You don't have to prove your worth. All that's left is to live in alignment with what you now know. And if this message touched something deep inside you, share it. Not for me, but for the version of someone else who's still standing where you once stood, believing they're broken when they're simply in the middle of remembering. Because every time we share light, we multiply it. Every time one person wakes up, the whole world shifts, even if just a little. So if your heart feels lighter, if your mind feels clearer, and your soul feels seen, then this is your sign. Keep walking. Keep choosing awareness. Keep becoming who you already are. And if you ever forget, come back here. Listen again. because this message isn't mine. It's life speaking to itself through me to remind you, you were never behind, you were always becoming. If this message found you, don't let it stop here. Subscribe and let's keep remembering together.